This video provides a high-level overview of the important notes and best practices for selecting and locating IR detectors. Since the Opticom IR system is a line-of-sight system, proper detector selection and placement are key to how well the Opticom IR system operates. A detailed site survey is needed to determine the best location and detector type. We will also discuss the wiring of the IR detectors. Contact GTT Technical Support for more details and additional information. An in-person detailed training for this topic is available. GTT offers 3 models of detectors. The first is the model 711, which is a single-channel, single-tube detector. The 721 is also a single-channel detector, but has 2 detection tubes. And finally, there is the 722, which is a dual-channel, 2-tube detector. The 722 has a gray access cover door so that it may be easily differentiated from the 721. When we say channel, we mean how many outputs the detector has. The 711 and 721 have 1 output, while the 722 has 2 outputs. GTT recommends the 721 detector to be used in most applications. As part of that recommendation, one 721 should be used for each approach to the intersection where you wish to have TSP or EVP. A single 711 may be used on narrow, low-speed roads. When a 722 is used, it is important to be sure that it is centered at a location that can be seen by both approaches. For example, on a cross-span wire intersection with narrow, low-speed roads. A 722 may provide adequate coverage. The following information is intended as a best practice starting point. There are many variations in road geometry, pole and mast arm locations, etc., that will require modifications to these recommendations. As we mentioned earlier, an in-person site survey is required to adequately determine the best location and detector type. A good starting point is also to drive the approach as an Opticom-equipped vehicle will drive it, and look for detector locations that will be able to see approaching vehicles from as far back as possible. Ideally, you will mount a Model 721 detector on a mast arm on the far side of the intersection centered over the approach. The 2 tubes of the 721 should be aimed toward the approach, with one tube aimed slightly to the left and the other tube slightly to the right. This way, vehicles on roads with many lanes will be detected. Another benefit is that the vehicle will be detected all the way to the stop bar. Make note of the locations of trees and keep in mind that they may grow and block the view of the detectors. In cases where there are curves approaching the intersection, it may be necessary to adjust the position of the detector to see around the curve. You may have to compromise stop bar coverage in order to service these curved approaches. This is an example of why a 721 with separate tubes is preferable. If the curve is too sharp or there are hills on the approach, it may be necessary to install a second or even a third advanced or auxiliary detector downstream to see around the curve or over the hill. The phase selector supports up to 3 detectors on each channel. Now let's discuss an additional installation step. There are small indents on the detectors that function as weep holes to allow moisture that accumulates inside of the detector to drain out. It is very important to knock these indents on what will become the bottom of the detector. This is especially important on span wire applications, as there is no other way for moisture to drain. Again, do not hesitate to call GTT for additional information on detector placement. Now let's talk about wiring. In wiring the detectors, GTT supplies the model 138 cable. This cable is part of the matched component system, and the use of other cable is not supported and may reduce performance, maybe significantly. The 138 cable should never be spliced, nor should the cable runs exceed 1,000 feet. Next, we will discuss detector wiring connections. GTT recommends the use of spade lugs when connecting the detector wires, both inside of the detector and at the traffic cabinet. When you look inside of the detector, you will see a label. Simply connect all 4 wires as indicated on the label. It is important to land all 4 wires on their own terminal. Do not combine the blue and bare wires. If the detector is mounted upside down, remember that the order of the wires will now be opposite of when mounted right side up. Follow the label. When landing the wires in a cabinet, you may combine the blue and bare wires, but only on a 711 and 721 detector. On a 722, the blue wire should not be grounded as it carries the signal from the second tube. If you are using a 760 card rack, land the wires per the label on the rack. If you are landing the wires in a cabinet with a built-in slot, land the wires per the cabinet drawing. If you have more than one detector on a channel, connect the single wire from the second and third detector to the auxiliary detector inputs on the model 768 auxiliary interface panel. Do not land more than one detector on a single wire on any signal input terminal. The 764 is designed to accept one detector signal per input. As we mentioned earlier, proper detector placement and selection is very important. This video only touched on key points and the common mistakes. A detailed in-person site survey is required to properly determine detector location and selection. Merely looking at intersection drawings is not sufficient. Many times these drawings don't show the location of hills, curves, and trees. If you will be doing a lot of detector placements, you may want to arrange for in-depth training from GTT.